Hello everyone, welcome back to Data Analysis YouTube channel. For this particular tutorial, we will go through how to create drop-down lists and how to freeze columns and freeze rows and freeze panes. So basically, what do we need drop-down lists for? What are drop-down lists? Okay, so drop-down lists is another important function of Microsoft Excel. We know that sometimes there is data entry, and at the point of entering the data, there could be error of entry, right? And sometimes you're entering information that is of a generic nature. For example, if you have, if you're working in a particular organization, the type of leave, okay, that is presented by HR is generic. So it's either it's annual leave or compassionate leave, or it's a public holiday, or it's a sick leave. I mean, it's fixed and it's something everybody knows, right? Okay, so in that situation, HR might decide to create a form that has a drop-down list so that you can select only from the available options. You will not have an opportunity to impute a different thing that is not approved by HR for that particular organization. So this is where these are the kind of places where drop-down lists come in very handy, because it ensures that the data that is recorded is very accurate and the inputs are well controlled. If this is your first time of stopping by the YouTube channel, please subscribe and like the content, and feel free to drop comments in the comment section. Tell us how you feel about the video. Tell us what you would like to see us do for the future, and also share the link with your friends and your colleagues. And please subscribe again if you haven't subscribed. Thank you. Okay, so we go into, and by the way, we also have amazing videos on pivot charts, pivot tables, data cleaning. We have amazing videos on how to format as tables, and the key functions that every person using Microsoft Excel must know. The link to all these videos are in the description box, so please do well to go to these links and watch the videos and let us know what you think. Back to drop-down lists. Okay, so for this particular tutorial, we are going to use, we are assuming this is a fixed asset form, right? So for most organizations, when you join the organization, there's certain types of fixed assets that are given to the staff. And it's not out of place that either logistics department or the admin department will present a small form to whoever the asset is given to, so that they can take stock of who holds what and in what location, right? So you can have this kind of list, this kind of form, okay, being created. Here it says staff ID, which is not the same. It changes for everybody. So this one, you can allow that it should be entered by the individual. The next information here is the fixed asset type. Okay, so most times the fixed asset type are basically around in the same class or in the same category. So you have things like computer equipment, you have things like buildings, vehicles, right? They're all in the same class. Then you have location. So most times the office is either located, you're actually maybe at the at the head office, or you're in sub office 1 or sub office 2 or sub office 3, right? Okay, so that's quite fixed as well. And of course the date changes. So how do we can use a drop-down list to control the input that is made by whoever in these places, so that they choose, they put the information in the correct way. So one of the ways we can do this, of course, with drop-down lists is we can impute drop-down lists manually, okay? So you look for the data tab, okay? So the data tab, and then you come to this section where you have data tools, and you click on the drop-down and you click on data validation. You have this beautiful dialog box coming up, okay? So here you click on this drop down and you select lists. And then for source, like I mentioned, we want to do this manually for now. Okay, so you put furniture, you put a comma. It is the comma separator that you need. And then the next one is computer equipment. Computer equipment. And the next one is vehicles, or maybe just vehicle, yeah? And the next one is building. And then you click OK. Ah, I did it in the wrong space. I just dragged it to the right one. Nice. Okay, so when someone wants to enter information, so for example, I want to type laptop, right? And I click enter. This is what Excel tells me. The value doesn't match. This value does not match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. So this is what it does. I cannot choose, I cannot impute any information that is not part of what is included in the drop-down list. And of course, when I click on the drop-down, I see the various options and I can choose. Okay, so if I'm given like a laptop, I can choose a computer equipment. And now the next information is location. Like I mentioned before, you can have different locations. So this is one way of putting information as a drop-down list. You can enter it manually. Another way is this, because another way is that you can have your data typed out nicely somewhere, okay, your source data, and then what you do is that you add to the drop-down list from your source data so that you don't have to enter the information manually on the drop-down list and separate it with a comma, okay? Because the next question will be this: what if there is an update? What if there is another fixed asset type that is added to the organization, or there is another location? How do we know? Okay, because this only can be followed by the person who prepared the document. If this document is handed over to someone else who may not really understand very quickly, the person may have to, of course, you have to manually go and check here, okay, to see the list of the information that was imputed. You can also get this from a source. So for the location, we will get it from the source. So basically what we do is we highlight the cell where we want the drop-down list to be in, and we click on data validation, and I click on list. And for the source, I am going to click this button, okay, this upward arrow, right? And then I go to source data, and I select this main office. So I select from main office down to sub office 3, and I click OK. And this is what I have. So I click on the drop down, and these are the options. So it's basically the same thing, but in different ways, and they all have their different advantages and disadvantages. Now, another thing that we need to note is this. Okay, so we have computer equipment, we have sub office, and clicking outside these two cells by just looking at the document, nobody knows that there is a drop-down list restriction, right? Except I try to type something else, or when I highlight the cell, I'm going to see this drop-down button appear. But by not, when the cell is, when I highlight a different cell, I cannot know that the fixed asset type and the location are drop-down lists. I cannot know this by just looking. So what we can do is that we can do this. We can add a comment, right? That makes it very visible. So here, this is what you do. You go to data, of course, click on data validation, and you choose the next option called impute message. So here I'm going to say, please select from the drop-down list. Lists. And I select OK. So we have this small information that pops up to tell you, hey, please select from the drop-down list. This is not just an ordinary cell. And every time you click in that cell, this message pops up to give you heads up that this is a drop-down list. So please select from the drop-down list. And of course, I'm going to do the same for the location. Impute message, please select from the drop-down list. So your message could be anything, right? You can add any message and you click OK. So every time that you select that cell, the message will pop up for you to see. Please select from the drop-down list. I mean, right now, I think it's a bit clearer that these are drop-down lists, okay, by just selecting them. Another thing that we can do is that, because another question is this, for example, we have a sub-office 4, okay, and I just want to increase the number of offices, and we also have sub-office 5, right? So as we go along, we have 2 additional offices, and I come here to add them. Let me see what happens. It is not automatically updated here. So we will go into how to update your source data so that for every update that is included, we can have the update on the fixed asset form drop-down list automatically. So how do we do this? The first thing we do is that we are going to edit. We are going to format as table again. So formatting as table enables you to do a lot of things in Microsoft Excel, and it's something you need to know. If you do not know it already, please, I made a very detailed video on formatting as tables. So in this situation, I want to format this particular column C as table, and then I will make it, I would link the table name to the drop-down list so that every time there is an update, the table will automatically expand to accommodate the updates that will reflect on the fixed asset form automatically. My table has headers, so I select this and I select OK. Nice. And I am going to name this location, or address. Let me just put address, right? So my table is now named address. And this is what I'm going to do. So while I have included drop-down lists, I can clear it. Okay, I can clear this so that I don't have that format any longer. And I remove this sub-office. And this is what I'm going to do, okay? You still select list again, but this time around your source will be called address. Because I named that table address, okay? So this is what I did after formatting this as table. I have highlighted from column C3 to column C8, and I come to the name box and I change the name to address. I change the name to address. So every time that I type address, this, this is what pops up. Okay. So because I have named that table. So this is what I'm going to do right now. What I am trying to achieve is this. I want to make sure that my source data is flexible enough to accommodate additions, because in the future, the number of sub-offices are likely to increase, and I should be able to edit my source data such that my fixed asset form will be affected automatically. So I come here, data validation, I select list, and I do equals to address, and I click OK. This is what I have, okay? I have all these options, main office, sub-office, and I am even going to do this sub-office 1, and I am going to add sub-office 6. And let us see. Ta-da! My drop-down list is updated automatically, okay? And of course, after choosing an option, I can put a message to say, please select from the drop-down lists. Drop-down lists. And this is what I have. So when I delete an information from the source data, it also disappears from here as well. So this is how to link your information, your drop-down list to the source data, and at the same time edit the source data information to make it flexible enough to expand while you have more information updated. So this is what we have for drop-down, of course, for drop-downs. And then you have the fixed asset register where you can have also the same information. So let us go through the drop-downs again. Here, I choose this. I go to settings. I choose list. And I choose from the source. Here, I choose OK. So the asset type, you can always select which one you want, okay? This. And then the next, I'm going to select from the location. You have the list, and then I'm just going to do address, okay? Because I already named the table address. And then I can choose. So what I'm doing here is Control D, duplicate, and it just drags down the information down, okay, so that the format comes along with it. And then, of course, you can write your date, and you can do a quick table format like this. You can add borders, okay, as you wish, as you wish. So this is all about drop-down lists, at least at the basic level. You can actually link one drop-down list to another one so that every time you select a drop-down list here, it brings up another information in another cell. We will do that in another video. So the next thing I would like to talk about is freezing of panes. Most times you have huge data sets, and while you're trying to scroll to see, you see that. So for example, in this situation, I am just going to make this to come back to the date format. Beautiful. And I am going to zoom this out. So this is a typical example, right? I want to see more of the information, but I have lost this heading. Okay. So while I am scrolling down, I am seeing the information I want to see. At some point, I become confused. What is this heading? What is this? Is this the amount? Is this the code? What it is? What is it? Okay, so there's a function in Microsoft Excel that helps you keep the column headers in place and also keeps the first column in place so that as long as you can scroll down the button to whichever section of the spreadsheet, you can still see your headers. And from there, of course, you can understand what the information means and what it is saying. So let us get started. For this particular one, all you need to do is to highlight the cell where you want the freezing to start from, if I'll put it that way. The cell where you want the freezing to start from, okay? So basically you select view, and then on window, in window section, you're going to see freeze panes. You click down, you click on the drop down, and here, okay, so you have freeze panes. So for freeze panes, you can freeze both the first row and the first column at the same time. The first column and the top row at the same time. So let us see what this happens. This is what we have. Okay, so no matter how I go down, the top row is intact and it's not hidden any longer, right? And if I go this way, we can see that the date column has not hidden itself also. It is just there static. We can also choose to freeze only the top row. Okay, in this case, you're freezing only the top row. All the columns are flexible. Okay, and the next option, we can freeze only the first column. Only the first column. Meanwhile, the top row is still very flexible. Of course, it can hide. And you can choose to unfreeze. Okay, you can choose to unfreeze the panes and have everything that you have very flexible. So thank you so much for this particular tutorial. We went through how to create drop-down lists manually. We went through how to create drop-down lists using source data. We also went through how to include comments in the drop-down list so that it is easier to understand what is expected of the person to do in that situation. We also saw how to clear data lists, okay, the drop-down list. How do you clear the drop-down list? And we saw how to name table that is in the source data, right, for that you're getting the drop-down list information from. We saw how to freeze panes, how to freeze columns, and how to freeze top rows only. Thank you so much for stopping by. In the next videos, we will go in depth into drop-down lists, and we will have even more interesting contents. So please subscribe, like, and share. Share this content with your friends and your colleagues, and feel free to drop a comment about how you feel with this particular video. Thank you, and see you another time.